Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's press briefing, Empowering Domestic Violence Survivors and Strengthening Support Systems. My name is Cassandra Etienne, Associate Director at the Center for Cooperative Media. And on behalf of the Center, we're pleased to join with Mosaic to present this panel as part of the monthly Not Your Same Old Sources press briefings. This series features experts from our diverse sources database, which is a publicly available, searchable index with experts of different races, ages, genders, and ethnicities in an effort to encourage journalists to be more inclusive in their reporting. Not Your Same Old Sources is also provides support to our ethnic and community media by facilitating access to newsmakers and government officials who can talk about timely issues that are of concern to New Jerseyans. In just a moment, we'll welcome today's host and moderator, Mosaic's Ande Richards, who will lead today's conversation with guests, including domestic violence prevention advocates, a survivor, and healthcare professionals. But first, just a few reminders. Today's event is being recorded, and we'll have time at the end of the session for questions from the audience.
Yep.
Again, please remain on mute if possible. And please drop your questions in the chat. You can raise your hand, you can ask them directly, and we'll do our best to answer them during our time here together. Thanks again for joining us, and I'll turn it over to our host, Ande Richards.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion, Empowering Survivors and Strengthening Support Systems for Victims of Domestic Violence. Our goal today is to raise awareness and to present a discussion highlighting the support systems available to victims of domestic violence and to spark new ways of discussing and reporting these stories. So what is domestic violence? It refers to abusive behaviors used by one individual to control or harm another within a domestic or intimate relationship. These behaviors may be physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, or they may be financial. The people involved can have a variety of relationships, including, but not limited to, husband-wife, same-sex, elder, caretaker, siblings, and more. So a little bit about the economic definition of domestic abuse. That is abuse that involves the use of financial control or economic dependency to dominate a partner, such as withholding money, sabotaging employment opportunities, or controlling access to resources. Okay, so why are we talking about this today? Domestic Violence Awareness Month was in October, but as many of you are aware, the holidays tend to ignite abusive behaviors in people between the financial stress, increased drinking or substance abuse, family gatherings and the triggers that are involved there. For some people, the isolation or the increased time together all contribute to what could really make people want to fall back on these violent behaviors. And two examples that have been in the news recently, one is sports related. So for the reporters that are in the room, you know, domestic violence intersects every aspect of our society and also every aspect of our reporting. So earlier this year, a Ugandan Olympic runner, Rebecca Cheptegei, I hope I'm saying her name right, I watched her run many, many times, was killed this year because her partner set her on fire. And she died as a result of that. So these are just some of the horrific things that happen within intimate partnerships and violence. Also, something a little bit closer to home, I'm sure you're all aware of the news around Sean Combs, AKA P. Diddy, and that video where we see him beating and kicking his then partner, Cassie Ventura. So just keep those things in mind. And I, again, want to welcome everyone. We not only have members of the media with us, we also have advocacy groups. We have social justice fighters and the general public just wanting to learn more and to understand what they can do to alleviate this issue. So without further ado, I would like to start introducing our panel today. First up is Ingrid Liriano. And she is Ingrid, I know you've shared this with me, so I'm going to share it with everyone else. She is a victim of domestic violence, and her experience gave her the impetus to create Casa de Amor, Breaking the Silence, which is her organization that helps particularly immigrant and migrant women who find themselves in a situation of being abused. Okay, next we have Hasnaa Mokhtar. Hasnaa is the executive director of Wafa House, a nonprofit founded in 2004 to address domestic violence in the Muslim community through intervention and education, providing a wide array of holistic recovery services for survivors in need. And next, we have Lisa Bednarz. And she is the regional director of case management at RWJ Barnabas Health, overseeing case management operations at 6 campuses in central and southern New Jersey. She has an advanced postgraduate training in family and couples therapy and trauma-informed care, and she's been a social worker. So she has a lot of angles to talk about with regard to domestic violence. Pamela McCauley. Pamela has been a victim witness coordinator for the Essex County Prosecutor's Office for, I think, the past 35 years is what you told me, Pamela. In this capacity, she serves as a primary advocate on state, county, and local levels regarding issues directly impacting the lives of victims and the witnesses of crime. So that is today's panel. But first, we're going to start with a victim of domestic violence. Her name is Tamara Sarasosa Lopez, and she very bravely volunteered to share her story. She does understand English, but she feels more comfortable speaking in Spanish. So I will be asking Ingrid Liriano to translate for us. So welcome, Tamara and Ingrid. And I'm going to give you my first question. I'm wondering if Tamara can just give us a little bit of her background, where she's from, how she ended up in the United States and met her partner.
Tamara, si le puede dar un poco del background, cómo llegaste aquí a Estados Unidos, para conocer un poco más de ti.
Ok, hola para todos. Como ya saben, mi nombre es Tamara. Yo vine a Estados Unidos la primera ocasión en vacaciones con mi visa de turista. Soy artista de tatuajes, soy tatuadora cosmética y tatuadora normal. Y vine a Estados Unidos a raíz después de la pandemia, empecé a viajar, iba y venía por periodos cortos hasta que conocí pues a mi pareja.
Okay, her name is Tamara Sarasosa. She came with visa to United States. She's a tattoo artist. And after the pandemic, she met the abuser.
Okay, so Tamara, would you tell us about the situation between you and your husband, how it escalated to the level of abuse, please?
¿Puedes explicarnos un poco de la historia con tu pareja, con tu esposo? ¿Cómo comenzó y inició todo?
Lo conocí en uno de los viajes que yo hice, pues en el segundo viaje que hice aquí a Estados Unidos. Lo conocí en un restaurante, empezamos a salir y bueno, se dio la relación y después de 2 años de estar en relación a distancia, que yo venía, él viajaba a conocer también a mi familia. Él me propuso que viniera acá a Estados Unidos y darnos la oportunidad pues de casarnos y hacer familia.
She was back and forth from the United States to Colombia, which is her country, and they were dating for about 2 years after she made the decision to stay with him. And they met at the restaurant.
Okay, lovely. So so you knew this gentleman for a while, Tamara. So tell me, when did things start to take a turn?
Ella dice, tú conocí a este hombre por un tiempo. ¿Cuándo comenzó los problemas?
Después de que me casé. A raíz de que empezamos a vivir juntos y una vez que me casé legalmente, fue cuando hubo la transición bastante brusca.
Okay. So she said after they got married, everything changed completely. So he turned around to a different person.
Okay, and can she give us an example of the domestic abuse?
¿Les puede dar un ejemplo de los abusos de violencia doméstica?
Empezó con cosas como inicialmente pues como frases humillantes, decirme inmigrante ilegal, que siempre me chantajeaba porque pues al casarme obviamente tenía que haber la legalización, esperaba eso porque yo quería volver a casa, mi familia, tengo un hijo, y él siempre usaba esto como en chantaje. Si yo no hacía lo que él quería, él me chantajeaba que yo no iba a legalizarme, que no iba a hacer papeles, situaciones de este tipo. Luego hubo agresión como física, empujones, insultos, y así hasta que llegó a más.
So they started verbal abuse, power and control, later on physical abuse also. And he was talking to her about the immigration status. You're not going to go back to your country because you need the papers. So it's a power and control after they got married, and also physical abuse. That's part of what you said before, what is domestic violence is.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to bring up the economic part of it. But also, Tamara, do you mind telling us about, I remember earlier you told me that he was recording you and your guests.
Si le puede decir que él te estaba grabando a ti y a tu invitada.
Sí.
I don't know where my Calamo.
Sucedió que cuando yo, después de tener un episodio fuerte de agresión de su parte, donde yo temí que él realmente me pudiera dañar, yo le propuse a él que yo me quería divorciar. O sea, ya después de casi 2 años de matrimonio, casi más de 3 años de relación, decidí terminar la relación, pero yo tuve una invitada en casa en mi proceso, pues, de que nos íbamos a separar. Era una niña de 18 años realmente, vino de unos familiares amigos cercanos míos de Colombia, y descubrí en una reunión en casa que él tenía instaladas cámaras de grabación en la habitación, en el salón, en la cocina, y tuve que hacer la denuncia con la policía porque no solamente me estaba grabando a mí, sino también a la chica, a la niña. Pues como les digo, sé que eso es algo ilegal, nunca tuve conocimiento al respecto y tuvo que intervenir la policía, y en este momento él está con una denuncia, aunque aún no ha sido arrestado porque tiene orden de arresto por abuso y acoso.
Okay, so what happened is she was talking to him to get through divorce because he was taking control, power and control, abuse, verbal, physical. But in the middle of that, she has a visitor from Colombia, a friend of them. And they had a meeting together, the whole family together. And she discovered that there was a camera everywhere, in the living room, in the bedrooms, in the bathroom. So when she got panicked, she went to the police to report that, because you know what, the girl was sleeping on the 18 years old girl was sleeping on the living room, and they find out the camera that he was looking everything, all the move, and she gets scared and she jumped to the police.
Okay, thank you. That's frightening. Tamara, what happened after you found the cameras? You mentioned the police. Did you go to the police to report what was going on?
¿Fuiste a la policía a reportarlo?
Yo fui a la policía a hacer el reporte, conocí a un detective, que Israel, su nombre, él fue quien me puso en contacto con Casa de Amor, y así fue como conocí aquí a la doctora Ingrid Liriano, que desde un comienzo pues a Casa de Amor me abrió las puertas y me apoyó tanto emocionalmente. Y bueno, la policía en este momento no puedo hablar mucho al respecto porque yo no conozco las leyes del país. Sé que tiene una orden de arresto mi esposo porque aún estoy casada, pero ya no estamos juntos, pero él no lo han arrestado, y legalmente el tema penal está en el aire. No sé cuál es el paso siguiente, pero yo hice la denuncia respectiva, aunque sé que él todavía está libre, no lo han arrestado.
She got the TRO, the restraining order. It's still in the process. That's why she don't want to talk about like she don't know the law on United States right now. But one thing that I know, she contacted me through that time that she went to the police department, and the detective called me and told me she needs help. So we're helping her in all the area, Belleville, trauma, psychology, therapy, and I know she moved from that place.
That was my next question, Ingrid. So just a little background for the audience. Tamara met with Detective Israel Nieves, and who happened to be acquainted with Ingrid and knew of the work that she was doing. And it was really fortunate that he remembered that and connected Tamara to her services. And so my final question for Tamara is, once you got connected with Casa de Amor and of course Ingrid, what has happened for you since then?
¿Qué pasó inmediatamente cuando te conectaste con nosotros, con Casa de Amor? ¿Qué pasó después?
Una vez que me contacté con Casa de Amor, tuve información respecto al apoyo que existe por parte del gobierno de Estados Unidos, pues yo tenía mucha ignorancia tenía mucho miedo e ignoraba que había ayudas, formas de ayudarme, ¿no? Ingrid me contactó con el grupo de apoyo psicológico, también me contactó con los abogados que en este momento se están encargando de mi caso, de mi estatus de migración. Todo esto está en un proceso. Tengo un caso abierto con BCCO, que son pues el programa que está apoyando con respecto a esto, y estoy pendiente de lo que continúe en el proceso como tal, pero fue Casa de Amor y Ingrid Liriano y el detective Israel que me puso en contacto con Ingrid, quienes me abrieron como la visión de que hay opciones de ayuda, que no estaba sola y que pues gracias a Dios, aunque los procesos son largos, hay esperanza de que yo pueda estar aquí de forma legal y estar mejor a futuro.
She said she feels very comfortable when she contacts Casa de Amor. We facilitate the resources, legal assistance, emotional psychology too. And she feels very comfortable because we give her hope, and that it's always a hope, and it's a way to have patience and continue. And then through the different organizations, it's going through the past that she's going to be fine. Even though she was at the beginning, she was so scared about it because she don't know the immigration status, what is going to happen. It's still marriage with him, but I don't have no papers, no green cards. So she was very afraid. We contacted the attorney that he's working with us in Casa de Amor. We contact the psychology, the psychiatry, the support group, and we're trying to do the best for her.
Thank you. Tamara, thank you so much for sharing your situation with us. I really appreciate your bravery and you being here today. So I'm sure everyone is clapping for you. And I understand that you have to get...
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me in this opportunity. I'm so sorry for my English not so good, but I wanna hope my experience it's a example for more women stay in this situation or the same situation.
Yes, thank you. I know you have to get back to work. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So Ingrid, since we have you on screen, would you like to give us a little bit more information about your organization and its role in the immigrant and migrant community, particularly working with women from Central and South America?
Yeah. Sorry for my voice. I'm losing my voice. It's been 3 days congested with my throat. But it is an honor for me to be in this panel discussion today. And it's an honor because as a Latino, we need to have a voice. And this is open doors for all of us. And we have a lot of women that's coming through the doors in families and children, even males also coming. That varies the language. They don't know they can get help. They don't know there's a hope that you can live without violence. So the Household of Breaking the Silence, we opened on January 5th, 2021 as a survivors. For almost 20 years, I was a victim, but thank God I went through all of this, that I can help others to have a voice. So what we're trying to do is facilitate resources, educate them, empower them to give it the guidance that the same way I have. We don't have a house yet. We don't have the shelter yet, but we do have an office donated for one of their benefactors. We do face-to-face. I just moved everywhere I had to go to find those victims. They contact me the same way. The detective contact me and connect me with her. As that, I have many women like that that we contribute in any area that we had to do. And we also have volunteers. We have psychology, we have social workers, we have attorney that's been added up to our organization to help. And we also have pro bono legal services too for them, because when you leave and you escape with nothing. And especially they don't know, like she said, Tamara said, we don't know the law of the United States. We don't know the status. We live in fear. We don't know if the abuses is going to be after us or it's going through their family they left behind. So this is what we're trying to do, to empower, educate the kids for everything, to break the silence. And for me, the most important is the support group. We get together every week to talk about it, to know your story, how we can help, how we can listen to you, to love yourself. Because many times, they don't love, they deny themselves. What is this happening to me? And I said, but it's happening to me. And look at me now, helping others to have a hope and to have a new life. And, it is normal, but it's scary because when they come to the story and the kids is also being abused from their parents, from their uncle, from the family, from the neighbor. So that's why they feel denial and they don't want to talk about it anymore. But every day we located in Passaic County, Passaic, New Jersey, there's a lot of immigrants, people around here, diverse, Latino diverse here. And everybody's, and they're knocking the doors and they heard about Casa de Amor, helping others to lift them up and continue to have a life without violence. That's what we're trying to do. And let me tell you, we had to change a lot of things here, the systems, because even her went to the shelter, Tamara, she got denial because she doesn't have no status, no money, financial. This is one of the forms of domestic violence. What are we gonna do? When she called me, she said, I don't have nothing to eat. She was sleeping in the car for 2 days. I just had a phone call last week also with a woman with 3 kids in the car, no place to go because she doesn't have no papers and she don't know. And that's why, they don't know the knowledge through Bauer, through different programs that we can help them little by little. And many organizations stay quiet. So, and we're trying to open the doors for many that don't have the knowledge for that.
Ingrid, thank you so much. And we'll be doing another round of questions. So I do have a follow-up question for you, but thank you so much for presenting that. Next, I would like to invite Hasnaa to tell us about Wafa House.
Good afternoon, Andy and everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. And thank you for sharing the story. So Wafa House, my name is Hasnaa, and I'm the executive director of Wafa House. It's a nonprofit that was established in 2004. So we're celebrating 20 years this year. And the primary reason why the co-founders of the organization created Wafa House was that they saw there's a need for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, primarily Arabic-speaking, Muslim, immigrant, and some South Asian, could not find the support that they need from mainstream services. More like culturally specific, culturally sensitive, support services that understand their holistic experience, their intersectional identities, and be able to take that into consideration. And so I'm grateful to work with an amazing team of colleagues who we have three main areas of focus: case management and direct financial and social assistance for survivors, our counseling team, and our legal team. So we provide holistic care for our survivors. They come in, sometimes people not always come and disclose immediately that they've suffered of something. They come and our case managers do a full intake with them and understand more of their needs. And the more comfortable they are, the better they kind of identify their needs and work with them on plans. Another thing that is unique about Wafa House is that everybody who is in the organization is bilingual. We offer counseling in Arabic, case management in Arabic. We have a Spanish-speaking team member also, and an Urdu-speaking team member. And we offer translation and interpretation services when the people who come in and seek support, we can't, help them immediately because of language barrier. Language barrier is a huge thing that kind of prevents a lot of survivors from coming forward. The fear, the stigma, most of the time, a lot of the survivors that come in, when we look at the data and the numbers, they're homeless, they are disabled, they have been traumatized and re-traumatized because of multiple immigration issues, as we've heard. We advocate for a holistic approach to treating and dealing with survivors, because you cannot just pick and choose when it comes to these experiences, these very traumatizing experiences for survivors. And so I'm very blessed to be working with an amazing team of colleagues. And if you know anybody, we have our phone number. You can call, you can email info@Wafa House, and then there is a referral link on our website. And I'm happy to share more information later on as needed.
Thank you, Hasnaa. Yes, and we will be sharing your information as well in a packet that we'll send to everyone after the event. At this point, I would like to invite Lisa to join us.
Hi, yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Bednarz. I am the Director of Case Management Services, which includes social work services for RWJ Barnabas Health. At RWJ Barnabas Health, we often see survivors of violence come into the hospital, both because of the violence, but also because of other chronic illnesses or conditions, or because this is a safety net that people know where to go to the hospital when they don't know where else to turn, right? So we heard from Tamara that she had gone to the police. Some people come to the hospital. We at RWJ Barnabas Health, we do screen everyone for intimate partner violence or just general violence. It's part of our initial conversation we have. And if someone has a concern, then they have a social worker who comes to speak with them about their options. Safety is paramount to us, but also respecting people's self-determination and making sure that they know what their options are so that they can make a choice of how to move forward. It's often connecting people to organizations like Ingrid's, like Dr. Hasnaa Mokhtar's organization. It's also making safety plans with individuals who are not ready to leave yet or aren't prepared to leave yet, but want to in the future. And just generally making sure that they have the resources they need.
Lisa, very, very briefly, because we are going to do another round of questions, but what's the safety plan?
Sure. So what people might not know is often when an individual is trying to leave a violent situation, that is actually the most unsafe they can be. A lot of the precursors to violence are trying to leave a relationship, trying to remove an abuser from a house or a home, something like that. And so a safety plan is, what would you do? Who would you call? Is there an individual you feel safe with that you could go to? Sometimes we're saving phone numbers in their phone of how to call for shelter or intervention, things like that.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we have Pamela McCauley. There she is. Pamela, make sure your audio is on.
There we go.
Okay, wonderful. So
Hi.
please tell us about the work you do.
Hi, my name is Pamela McCauley. I am the Director of Crime Victim Services for the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, and I have been working in this capacity, in this position, for 34 years, but 38 years as a crime victim advocate here in the state of New Jersey. And when I first began doing this work right out of college, we weren't having a dialogue about intimate partner violence. We certainly did not have system-based programming. Police departments, hospitals, prosecutors' offices, which left victims of intimate partner violence, first of all, without services, but denied them the context and the experience of what was happening to them. This program within the prosecutor's office has been operational since 1982. And the office is created by statute, so we have a statutory obligation to provide a level of care and services to all victims of crime, but in particular, domestic intimate partner violence, which includes those who have fallen victim to assaults, robberies, burglaries, the stalking, cyber stalking, all of those that involve intimate partners. We have been charged, our mission is threefold. We provide a victim assistance to crime victims, those who are entering the criminal justice systems through basically no fault of their own, and need assistance in navigating these murky, I call them the murky halls of justice. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, gosh, that what I want to do is become a crime victim. I want my house broken into, you know, I want to spend hours in ER because someone, an intimate, has hurt me or my children. So we have prioritized access and trying to get the information out in the community, understanding that as system-based programs, it's our responsibility to open up more avenues of access so that people not only know about the services that are available to them in the event of criminal victimization, but to address the barriers and to remove the barriers that often keep people in a state of captivity. We have here in our office, we are a multilingual staff, Spanish, Portuguese, French, some Italian, and we have prioritized even our staffing to reflect the demographic of the population that we serve. We have extended our office hours, and even in terms of community outreach, we have bought a van so that if people can't get to us, we can certainly go out in the public, and we have a fully serviceable van for mobile outreach purposes.
Pamela, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
If I've been a victim of violence, intimate partner violence, and I see your van, how would I identify your van? And then what happens once I am, interacting with someone?
Well, it's the van it's a big blue van, and on every surface it says the Essex County Prosecutor's Office of Victim Witness Advocacy. So it's easily identifiable. We are located in the Veterans Courthouse, 50 West Market Street on the 3rd floor. But the reason why I am bringing this to the attention of the attendees here is that what I'd like to leave you all with is that wherever there is a need, that we are prepared and equipped to address the need, and without the victim survivor trying to access systems of care that we all know are not very caring, and in a justice system that is not very just and skewed towards access for crime victims.
Thank you. Thank you. So what would happen if I see that blue van and I go in? What happens?
So we have prioritized our networks. We cannot do our job effectively sitting behind desks in offices. We need to be out there. We need to know what services are available. We need to coordinate, better coordinate these services. I tell my staff, there are two things that two standards that we must meet. One, when people attempt to access our services and they have requests, that we have to address that need immediately. And if we are not able to do that directly, then it's our responsibility to work through our networks to have these needs addressed. And the second and most important thing is that nobody dies on our watch. So if we have to stay late, if we have to work the weekends, if we get phone calls, and we do, in the middle of the night because someone is in need of services placement, they are in vulnerable situations, then we are there and we have the networks. We know the people that are going to answer the phones in order to keep the victim and the victim's family safe. That is part of our jobs. That is part of our commitment to do. And as a member and a functioning member in this justice system, to bring up a degree of justice and access to those who historically have not had a voice nor have been seen by these systems of care and recognized adequately and appropriately in the justice system.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. So I'm going to go back to Ingrid. So Ingrid, I know that you are a relatively, Casa de Amor is a relatively new organization. And I want you to talk about the challenges, the financial challenges that you face being a young organization, and what are some of the things that you're trying to do to increase support?
Yes. So financial control by the abuser, dependence in finance, and as a new baby and domestic violence, organization, we trying to depend on the fundraisers. So we do gala. This is our 4 galas coming up on March 21st. 2 weeks ago, I had PNC fundraiser. The reason why, because we're trying to get grants, and I'm working on the business plans to get everything together to get grant writers. We need that support because all the money is coming from donations, contribution. I never stop. Every 2-3 weeks, I have a fundraiser to try to make it happen because the access to the system, to the service in this USA, most of the victims or underserved Latino community, they don't have limits, like limited to access to go to the church, to legal support, assistance is to psychology, therapy in hours. It's about $140, $150. And I've been talking to different ones, to volunteers at pro bono, to give it 1 hour free for what happened to the rest. So one of the girls that I have is another girl from Colombia, and she's a very prepared professional, came from Colombia, but also went through domestic violence, and we're working through her. And she said, but what is gonna happen? I don't have no money to get mental health. I mean, I got the house now, the small apartment, but what happened inside of me? Even though she's coming to the support group, she wants to continue to that. So we're looking to do grants, federal grants, or benefactors, or doing fundraisers every 2-3 weeks to try to get some funds to help them to pay for that. We just did a partnership with Harvard University Mental Speaking. It's an IG intelligence for whoever wants to talk about it and breathe. It's about $6 a week, $24 a month. I had to pay for that because they don't have nothing. They come in out of anything and they go back to the abuser because they don't have financial, economic, how to do it. Like Lisa was talking about the safety plans. Safety plans is to save some money on the side if you're going through domestic violence and power and control, but how are you going to put it safe? when they control, when they have camera, they see everything, and they also control you not to work because they want you to depend from them. So what is the symptoms or the signal that we are in abuse in the family? They don't know. Family don't know, and they require. So we're trying to get financials everywhere. We have a company right now helping us as a pro bono to do grants.
Okay, so we're going to share the information of your organization with people who may want to offer their time or money or both.
Yes,
Ingrid, do me a favor, position your screen so that we can see you, because it's like we see under your nose. I'm sure it's. Thank you. There's your beautiful.
Sorry.
Wonderful.
No,
okay.
We are located in 40 Passaic Avenue, Passaic, New Jersey, Passaic County, Casa de Amor, breaking the silence, rompiendo el silencio, Casa de Amor. We have an office there. We work in 24/7 because we always have a phone calls. You can contact Ingrid, Casa de Amor. We have a website. We have the media. We also, well, you have the information, you can let them know.
Absolutely.
Send it there. I think Clariver is connected. Clariver, can you send the information and the website? Clariver is part of the team. We're working very hard together to make it happen. And let me tell you, everything's gone through the Casa de Amor, financial, clothing, food, everything is go right away to the victims and survivors. Nothing is stayed with us. So we're just looking for the safe to give it the legal support, and also for them to have a voice to change others from the light, from the darkness to the light. Everything is possible. My phone number is 973-710-2753. Please contact anything that will help. Right now, I'm leaving from here to Jersey City, because New Jersey Reentry donated me some winter coats for one of the families that just escaped 2 days ago. So we are here, we're open to any little things, and you guys can contact me. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you. Ingrid, I want you to stay on because we're going to take questions from the audience, okay? Hasnaa, would you do another piece of this picture for us? Would you talk about some of the challenges that organizations like Wafa House or individuals like Tamara face when the media wants to talk about the work they do or the experience they've had?
Absolutely, Andy. Thank you. So, the media plays a huge role in highlighting the problem, in, keeping the conversation alive and going. Domestic violence and sexual assault are not quote unquote fun topics that people want to discuss and admit that there's a huge problem in every community, in every country, because the violence does not discriminate. The issue becomes sensitive, and I've had a firsthand experience recently about the sensitivity of reporting. How do we use a trauma-informed lens to kind of handle these stories and these experiences with care? How do we write stories of or report and experiences of survivors without re-traumatizing them? How do we actually take time to do research, to understand the nuances, to kind of center the voices of the survivors rather than just try to kind of put out these pieces that are like make headlines and, on the expense of making the survivor feel that their story, that they're re-traumatized. So there's a lot of research out there and a lot of toolkits that can, create awareness when reporters, journalists, people who want to, how do they handle these pieces with care? As I mentioned, I've had a firsthand experience. I'm a survivor. I speak, this is what brings me to the work. I'm in a good place in my life where I can talk about it freely and it motivates me. And, I've done research on the same topic. And I've had a recent experience with a journalist and an editor, and both refused to listen to me when my story was handled with lack of care, when there was, and I just kept saying over and over, there has to be more nuances when we're trying to report on these details and not just, sensationalize the story so that we can get clicks and hits. And that, because that's not fair because the systems are already in place, you know, whether legal, whether medical, everything kind of creates these re-traumatizing experiences. And so the media is also another piece that comes in and just, you know, takes away that one element that this is my voice, this is my story, and I want to be able to communicate that. And then if somebody does not handle it with care, they end up just, you know, causing harm more than supporting or, you know, shedding a light on the issue.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to go through that experience, but I'm really grateful that you're sharing that with us. And I just want to let everyone know that Hasnaa has also shared a media kit with guidelines for journalists that again we will share after the event. So thank you very much for that. Next, I want to talk to Lisa. And Lisa, I want you to put your couples therapy hat on and tell people about the work that you do in that space. I think when we talked earlier, you brought up some really strong points about was it, and I forget exactly, was it communication? Oh, I know, there were several things, but two things stood out to me was the elderly, you know, what happens with elderly folks and intimate partner abuse. And also, I don't think we've touched on what happens to children. So maybe you could speak on those things for us.
Sure. And I think what Hasnaa just said is really important about with the media and just generally the systems. I think the systems really like to see a victim and a perpetrator, a bad guy and a good guy. And the longer I work in this space, and especially as a trained couples therapist, I really work hard not to see a bad guy and a good guy. I see cycles, I see dynamics, I see, you know, all sorts of things. And I think when you're coming into this space, that is one of the challenges. And I'll speak to that in the form of elder abuse, which is my background, elder justice. So if it's domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and those cycles aren't stopped at 30 years or 40 years or 50 years, they grow old. They grow old, and then they're complicated by things like dementia or cognitive decline, physical debility and illness, and all of those dynamics that already existed can be exacerbated by someone who then needs a lot of care or assistance, right? So that's why in the hospital we do see a lot of elder abuse. Depending on the type of abuse, whether it's sexual, physical, there's different common perpetrators. Oftentimes it is a spouse. Or an adult child. And so that's one of the things you're intervening on. And oftentimes it's complicated, right? It could be a child who they themselves were a victim of abuse as a child. Now they're the caregiver for their parent, and that, you know, those complicated things. So talk about when you come into it, it's really easy to want to have a bad guy and a good guy. And honestly, there's a lot of reoccurring patterns within violence that we have to combat. So that's my couples therapy hat, right? I mean, but when I'm in the hospital, my first and foremost, my job is to keep people safe and well. And so sometimes we have to have that, you know, that line of demarcation. We might decline visiting, you know, do things like that. There might pursue guardianship if a person is an older adult and doesn't have the ability to decide to leave, right? Once you have a cognitive impairment or a significant physical impairment, and you no longer can decide to leave or act to leave, that's a really hard situation, right? In addition to all the other power and control dynamics that we see that make it difficult to leave. So those are some of the things that come up in the hospital fairly frequently. Did I answer your question, Andy? Do you have
You did, and I have another question, because as you say that, I'm like, yeah, what happens if you have dementia or if you're have to use a walker or a wheelchair? I mean, what services do you connect those people with?
So there's a power and control wheel that's existed for 45 years now. They've updated that to include certain aspects of elder justice, like if you need, and it's actually not even elder justice, it's disability justice, right? Because people can use a walker at any age. A power and control tactic in those areas is to take away their medical equipment, take away what they need to be independent, right? So remove a walker, remove a wheelchair, or something like that. in those situations where someone still has the ability to do self-determination, we rely heavily on adult protective services and other community social services. Certainly going to call on my colleagues on this call. So, you know, we want to always empower the individual to make their own decisions, but make sure that they have all of the information they can to make those decisions. In situations in which they no longer have the mental capacity to do so, we often are working with the legal system and the court system to get an advocate for them. That might be a guardian, it might be a court-appointed attorney, to help support them through the next steps.
Okay, great. Thank you. And finally, Pamela, I believe when we were chatting earlier, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned some training programs that would help just everyday people understand domestic violence and be able to help others. And you also mentioned legislation that would help victims of domestic violence. Can you speak about those things for us?
Sure. I'll start with our sanctuary program. So this program began in, I think it was 2010. And I'll just give you a really brief background. Okay, so I had my supervisor at the time called me on a Sunday morning, and she had just left church, and two deacons, they were married. The man, male deacon, shot his wife in the garage and then shot himself. So it was a murder-suicide. And these were pillars, apparent pillars, not only in the church, but also in the community. And of course, the community was they were just shocked, and they were looking for ways, what should we do? We know that in terms of access, that and especially in communities of color, that people might be reluctant to call the police. They may not be in a position because they don't have medical coverage to seek services, you know, with the doctors or hospitals. So we wanted to provide other areas of access. So we started with the ecumenical community. And it was a 40-hour training. And what we wanted to do was to equip those who wish to support crime victims, domestic violence victims, and what is needed in order to do that. What does that look like? Because Essex County and where the nexus where we are, it serves communities of color. Everything that we talk about and the program is designed for, we talk in the context of culture. We talk in the context of intersectionality. So we are looking at race, we're looking at gender, we're looking at ableism, we're looking at LGBTQ plus, we're looking at gender identity as a means and designing services that acknowledge the different aspects of who we all are. Since the beginning of the program, and we provide information. For example, this program has been expanded to 100 hours, understanding that we needed time to not only learn about information as it pertains to intimate partner violence, but we needed to practice the skills. We needed to raise our level of effectiveness and professionalism when delivering these services. So the program is now 100 hours. It's a 6-month program. We offer it free of charge because we understand that if you took it at a college course, it would cost over $1,000 to take. We offer the course with the understanding that upon graduation, you have to get busy in the community. So we have graduated over 700 people. And they have gone on to start their own programs to be involved locally with their domestic violence response teams. They have started outreach in their churches, their workplaces, their social organizations, and we will continue to do so. Our next cohort starts at the end of January. You can check, I will put my information in the chat. You can find the applications online. In terms of domestic violence legislation, New Jersey is one of the most progressive states in the union as it pertains to providing protections to intimate partner violence victims. The Prevention of Domestic Violence Act covers 19 enumerated offenses. And I want to say that just because someone does not have injury or apparent injury, or that their level of injury does not rise to the level of criminality, does not mean that they're not victims, survivors, and that they are not due services and resources. We don't turn anyone away here. You know, you call, you have a need, we are going to address the need. New Jersey is one of, I want to say 2 states, but I'm not sure, that has domestic violence restraining orders that don't expire, which is great. So in order, if you have a restraining order, a final restraining order, the way for that restraining order to end is that the victim goes in and makes the petition to the court. It gives the victim survivor the power and determination, the autonomy to make decisions as it pertains to their situations. We also have legislation that if there are weapons that are involved in the commission of a domestic violence act, that we can apply for, it's a ERPO. I'm not good with acronyms, but my office can petition the court to have the weapons removed from and deny access to perpetrators of crime. And then the last thing I just want to say to your question about the media, we have to remember that, you know, once the next human catastrophe occurs, that those who have been criminally victimized are very often left to their own devices. This is a community effort. We all have a part to play in making sure that people and crime victims are believed, that we can all navigate our spaces in safety and security, and that all of us as members of this community, if something happens to us criminally, that we have a right to be made whole. And it's everybody's responsibility, community-wise, to invest in those who have had the misfortune of being crime victims. The last thing I really want to say is that we see you, we hear you, we acknowledge your pain. We are terribly sorry that this type of situation and event has happened, but know that you're not forgotten, you're not forsaken, and that we are here and available when you're ready.
Thank you, Pamela. I'd like us to open it up to questions. We're at time, but I'm hoping that there are some questions that we have for our panelists. And I'm going to rely on our.
We have one in the chat. We did have one in the chat here. Do you all have safe? This is Layla. Do you all have safe houses / interim housing when the survivors seek help? And how do you manage the lack of affordable housing? This is from like 15 minutes ago, so it may have been directed at a specific speaker, but
I can go ahead and speak. Unfortunately, we don't have a shelter and we're not have housing. However, we do have funding from the Department of Children and Families specific to housing. It's called domestic housing. Domestic violence housing first, and it's flex funding that primarily is directed towards any needs of any survivor, whether that's housing, utilities, rental, if they need support with any legal fees, anything that covers the survivor's needs, starting from housing all the way to childcare and everything else. And that's an amazing program. The challenge is sometimes is just kind of finding the landlords who are willing to work with us and accept to take the money and take the clients. But other than that, we also have, always kind of getting availability of shelters on daily basis and kind of work with different houses for that. But for Wafa House, we're called Wafa House, but that name is a bit deceiving, but we don't unfortunately have a shelter.
And in Essex County, we have domestic violence programs, the Safe House, but also Access Family Services. Access Family Services provides emergency shelter services, but they also provide transitional housing, which is great. So instead of only being able to stay in a domestic violence shelter 45 to 60 days, Access Family Services is able to extend that stay for emergency care, but also their transitional housing is 24 months and beyond. And the great thing about this is when the family is ready to leave transitional housing, they take everything with them from the unit. So they are able to start with blankets and beds and tables and all of those things that they need in order to begin and re-enter a life, so that they're better able, to go on and live as they should.
Thank you, Pamela. Are there any other questions in the chat, or I see some faces. I think that's Penda. Did you have a question for us? Any of the journalists in the room?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody would like to pop real quick off of mute and ask, you're more than welcome to, as long as you keep it relatively brief, since we're over time already and we want to respect everybody's time.
I'm more than happy to, Ande Richards.
Thank you, Josie Gonzalez. Public Square.
I think this is for, and I may have missed it, and so my deepest apologies for Ms. Macaulay. What's the data on the costs to house someone in your safe house? How many people can you house? Where does the money come from? Is it from the state or federal government to cover, because and whether or not this is under the homelessness budget. So can you give us some data on that? How long you've been in existence? What's the average number of families who come through your safe house? Do you serve single individuals or families? And so how does it create tension? And what's the process of, I mean, this is a much bigger conversation, I suppose, but also.
Well, Josie, try and give us like one.
Well, let me just say this. I'm a prosecutor-based program. I work, my office is system-based. It's a prosecutor's program. So we are charged with prosecuting these types of cases. But I work very closely with the domestic violence residential programs here in Essex County, both the Safe House and Access Family Services, which is why I can speak to that level of care. I'll be happy to leave my contact information as well if you'd like to contact me so you can ask your questions directly to those programs. I have no problem doing it, but I cannot speak directly as in terms of funding and in terms of data. I can say that annually we assist anywhere between 12 to 16,000 victims, contact and assist 12 to 15,000 victims and survivors and their family members annually. Almost half, about between 51, 52% of the folks that we see, their issues are domestic violence they're domestic violence related. And a lot of these cases are not just domestic violence. We're talking assaults, we're talking sexual assaults, we're talking child abuse cases, terroristic threats, kidnapping, so that is my area. But the bottom line is that there is a great need. So we all have to, do our share in order to address and provide these services so that people can live safe and be safe in their personal spaces.
I actually had a follow-up to Ms. Macaulay, if you don't mind, Ande Richards. So it's been a long-standing sort of discussion nationally. And full disclosure, I've worked in domestic violence from a housing perspective, so building safe housing that was affordable. So is there, and from a prosecutor's perspective, is there a discussion around creating a DV court that's separated out from, say, family court? Is there a DV court or a discussion around a specialized court, like courtroom like that?
Yeah, so that is one of our recommendations on a county level. Our domestic violence working group is to explore the possibility of starting a domestic violence court. We have a domestic violence court that's attached to our criminal judicial processing court. That's our first appearance court for those DV related cases. But I have always been a proponent of specialized courts, and not only just the domestic violence court, but also restitution, and making sure that restitution is collected before people are their obligation to probation and even parole has ceased. So that is something that we are working towards. And I see that there is a question about using social media technology. And I'm not sure whether or not you're asking those of us who are working in this system, or if we're talking about those who have been victimized through, cyber harassment. I can say for us here, we are developing a system, a mini series, because we want our message and the information to go out, and realizing that we are talking multi-generations who are tech savvy. So our emphasis and priority is to use social media in a way that's meaningful, but will also disseminate the information to the public.
Thank you, Pamela. And any other questions in the chat? While we're waiting to get a question, I just wanted to say on the economic note, I did a story earlier this year about a woman who was fighting to keep her home. And what I did not know until recently, when I was telling her about this event, was that at the core of this, she was a victim of domestic violence. She was abandoned with her 2 sons and left to handle the finances on her own, which caused her to be late on payments. And then, of course, we had the predatory lenders and that other world step in. Like we've been saying, though, you get victimized once and then you get victimized by another group and another group. So this issue is prevalent. It intersects every aspect of reporting. I really encourage all of the journalists on the call to pick an angle and to report on it. I also wanted to point out that women lose days at work, so they lose income. This also affects their employer, who is relying on them. So there is a whole other economic end of this that I don't think we talk about enough. I had some statistics that, of course, I don't have with me, but it was, thousands of hours of lost work and lost pay for victims, but also impacting their employers, right? Do we have another question?
There's a question by Richard. Would love to take.
Yes, thank you, Hasnaa.
Asking what's a good first step someone can take to support a victim of DV? I would say, Richard, like one of the first things I was taught when I trained for the hotline back when I was volunteering is that they tell us that of a survivor or a victim, the ability to make decisions and take control of their life has been taken away from them. So instead of just offering advice or trying to give area of choices or whatever, just listen to them, validate them, tell them this is not their fault. And then you yourself can just go pick up the hotline away from them and say, how can I support this person more? And they'll provide you with a lot of, whether it's a safety plan, whether it's resources, whether it's support groups, whatever is needed. But just tell them, how can I be there for you? And the survivor is always the expert in their, in their experience, and they guide you through what they need from you rather than you coming and telling them what they should or shouldn't do.
Thank you, Hasnaa. Do we have any other questions? Okay, so I'm just going to say, I know there are some social justice warriors in the audience, and we fight for a lot of different things, and I feel like we don't, I'm giving an opinion now, that we don't fight enough for women who make up more than half the population, definitely of this country, if not the world, right? So what domestic violence does is it infringes on our basic human rights, our safety and our autonomy. And it definitely warrants intervention. It definitely warrants us kind of just doing a call to action, like letting people know we care about women. The statistics for domestic violence and sexual assault are astounding, and we will be sending those to you. But when you read that, you have to think that just looking at the screen, how many of us have been impacted by domestic violence? How many of us have been sexually assaulted? I guarantee that everyone on this call knows someone who has experienced one or both of those things, unfortunately. So let's take care of each other and really keep this front of mind, not back of mind, front of mind. So unless there are any other questions, I really appreciate Center for Cooperative Media for partnering with us, for the panelists today giving generously of their time, and for everyone in the audience that showed up to listen. I know that you guys are planning your stories already. And, thank you to those who asked questions, because again, it's just more for us to explore. So until the next time, I will say thank you and good afternoon, and be on the lookout for contact information, statistics, media kits, etc.